Thought 1. A strength of democracy. Democracy discourages violence by giving the people a peaceful means of changing the government. Democracy discourages chaos, instability, and disorder by giving the people an orderly and stable means of changing the government. Democracy encourages peace, order, and stability. Democracy allows for a government to be changed without chaos and disorder. Thought 2. The differences between the sexes. People love nothing more than to overstate the differences between the sexes. The reality is that the sexes are both very similar. Men and women alike delight in overstating their differences. Differences are subject to significant exaggeration. Both groups seek to convince themselves that they are not like the other. They seek to convince themselves of such things relentlessly. Only through constant reminders can one force oneself to ignore reality. Overstating the differences between the sexes can be dangerous. It risks self-fulfilling prophecies as expectations inevitably become reality. People love to overstate differences broadly. Differences between groups of people are almost always exaggerated and overstated. People love to emphasize and fixate on differences. The reality is that the similarities are often great. When one looks at another, on some level one is looking in the mirror. Only by fixating on differences can we convince ourselves otherwise. And we love to convince ourselves otherwise, for there is something terrifying about being just another member of the herd. Ironically, those who accept their unexceptional nature are the most exceptional. When one regards oneself as uninteresting, one becomes interesting. When one does not think that one is special, one becomes special. The absurdity of it all never fails to amuse me. Thought 3. Political corruption. Corruption is often regarded as a perspective altered by money. The politician embraces a policy or drops one after being bribed. This is corruption, but it is not the only form of corruption. It is not simply that the rich buy politicians. They fund and empower politicians who already agree with them. This is also corruption. Corruption is the distortion of politics by big money interests and financial power. This can take many forms. Buying the loyalty of a politician is corruption. Harnessing your finances to empower politicians that already agree with you is also corruption. Corruption is the manipulation of politics by big money interests. Thought 4. Political tragedy. Some warn us against politicizing the tragedy. They forget that many, if not most tragedies, are fundamentally political. They could have been prevented had different political decisions been made. One is not politicizing the tragedy. In many cases, the tragedy is already political. One is just recognizing reality. Most tragedies are political. They are not being politicized. A political reality is being recognized. Good political decision-making can prevent many tragedies. Bad political decision-making can cause many tragedies. Thought 5. Human regret. Some claim that if you have no regrets, you have learnt nothing from experience. The opposite is true. If I had regrets, I would undermine all that I have learnt from experience by wishing to do away with the basis of that learning. I have no regrets because every mistake is an opportunity to learn and improve. I have no regrets because every mistake is an opportunity to become superior. I do not regret failure. I do not regret the opportunity to recognize and address a flaw. I do not regret the opportunity to grow stronger. Thought 6. The story of humanity. No fiction is as interesting as this reality. No fiction is as interesting as the story of humanity. Each and every one of us are characters in this story. Everything that we do is part of the story. Everything that you have ever done is part of the story. And it always will be. Nothing can ever change that. At a particular point in time and space, we are immortalized. We may die, but in a particular point in time and space, we are immortal. We will always have our place in the story of humanity. We will always have our place in the fibre of reality. Thought 7. A great philosophical question. The greatest philosophical question is one word long. Why? This three-letter word is the cornerstone of philosophy. Intellectual curiosity, the will to knowledge, criticism and questioning, all of it begins with this one word. With this one word, one can build a worldview. With this one word, one can destroy a worldview. This single word calls upon every claim to justify itself. This single word decimates countless claims. Who would have guessed that the incessant why of the toddler was the most important philosophical demand? The greatest philosophical question consists of one word. Thought 8. The rational view. People have a tendency to allow comparison to others to destroy themselves. Never compare yourself simply to the better. Always remember the worse. Find pleasure in what you have, rather than finding misery in what you do not. Never let comparison destroy things. Enjoy things in of themselves. Enjoy the little things. The little things are meaningful. Appreciate the little things.